Did you know that GTA 5 contains one of the most disturbing unsolved mysteries in gaming history? The Infinity Killer case, complete with mutilated bodies hidden across the map, cryptic messages written in blood, and a serial killer you can actually track down and confront. But that's just the beginning. Los Santos isn't just a playground for chaos and car theft. Beneath the surface of strip clubs, gang wars, and heists lies something far darker. A layer of secrets that Rockstar spent years embedding into every corner of this massive world. Ghosts that appear only at specific times, cults performing rituals in the mountains, UFOs watching from above, and mysteries so complex that, after more than a decade, thousands of players are still trying to solve them. Over the next 2 hours, we're going to explore the creepy, disturbing, and genuinely unsettling side of Grand Theft Auto V. From confirmed Easter eggs to cut content that was too dark even for Rockstar, from serial killers to supernatural encounters, from the depths of the ocean to the peaks of Mount Chiliad. So, turn down the lights, get comfortable, and let's dive into the darkness of Los Santos. Let's start with something that seems absurd at first, but gets progressively more disturbing the deeper you look. The Epsilon program. On the surface, it's Rockstar's satirical take on Scientology and similar cults. You've probably encountered them if you've played the game. The guys in light blue robes wandering around Los Santos, shouting about Kiflim and asking for donations. Most players laugh it off as another piece of GTA's trademark humor. But here's the thing. The Epsilon program isn't just a joke. It's one of the most elaborate, detailed, and genuinely unsettling elements in the entire game. The Epsilon questline is exclusive to Michael, and it starts innocently enough. You see an ad on the in-game internet, you take a personality test, and suddenly you're being recruited into what appears to be a harmless meditation group. But as the missions progress, things get weird. Really weird. They make you steal vehicles, deliver suspicious packages, and eventually, they ask you to run through the desert for 5 miles. Not 5 in-game miles, 5 actual real-world miles. Your character, wearing nothing but Epsilon robes, jogging through the wilderness for what feels like an eternity. Here's what most players don't realize. The Epsilon program has lore that goes back decades in the GTA universe. According to in-game documents you can find on their website, the program was founded by Chris Formage in the 1950s. They believe that the world was created by Krapf, their deity, who came from the fourth paradigm. They have a whole mythology about dinosaurs being just lizards that were tricked by Krapf, about how there are 9 forms of matter, and how the color blue is the key to spiritual enlightenment. Rockstar didn't just throw this together. They created an entire fictional religion with websites, podcasts, books, and even a full tract you can read. The Epsilon tract is over 50 pages of rambling pseudo-philosophical nonsense that sounds exactly like real cult literature. It's so well written that some players genuinely weren't sure if it was satire or if Rockstar had lost their minds. But here's where it gets genuinely creepy. According to game files extracted by modders, there are Epsilon symbols hidden in over 47 different locations across the map. Not just obvious places like their headquarters. We're talking about remote areas in the desert, underwater locations, and buildings most players never enter. Some of these symbols glow at night. Others only appear under specific weather conditions. The community has been cataloging these for years, and people are still finding new ones. I personally spent probably 20 hours trying to decode every Epsilon message, cross-referencing them with the Chiliad mystery, looking for patterns in the numbers they mention. And what I found was genuinely unsettling. The numbers 9, 1, and 2 appear constantly throughout Epsilon materials. 9 paradigms, 1 craft, 2 paths. But here's the kicker. Those same numbers show up in completely unrelated mysteries throughout the game. The Infinity Killer messages, the altruist camp symbols, even certain coordinates on the map. Is Rockstar suggesting these groups are connected? Or is it just coincidence? We don't know. And that uncertainty is what makes it so effective. The quest line ends with a moral choice. You can either give Chris Formage the $2 million you've been collecting for him, or you can steal it and leave the Epsilon program behind. Most players steal the money because, well, it's GTA. But if you complete every Epsilon side mission and unlock every secret, something strange happens. The game doesn't tell you this. There's no achievement, no notification. But data miners found that certain values in the game's code change. Values that may or may not be connected to the larger Chiliad mystery. The Epsilon program is Rockstar at their most ambitious. It's satire, sure, but it's also a fully realized fictional cult with depth that rivals actual religious movements. And the fact that they embedded so much of it into the game's hidden systems suggests they wanted players to obsess over it. They wanted us to feel like we were being recruited, and in a way, we were. But Epsilon isn't the only cult lurking in Los Santos. Deep in the mountains, something far older and far more violent is waiting. The altruist cult. And unlike Epsilon, these people don't want your money. They want you. Picture this. You're playing as Trevor, driving through the wilderness of Blaine County, and you encounter a random event. A hitchhiker on the side of the road asking for a ride. Being the good Samaritan you are, you pick them up. They tell you where they want to go, and you start driving. But then Trevor, being Trevor, gets an idea. Instead of dropping them at their destination, you can take them to the altruist camp, a compound high in the Chiliad mountain range inhabited by a group of violent, possibly cannibalistic cultists. When you arrive at the camp, the altruists greet you warmly. Too warmly. They thank Trevor for the delivery, hand him some cash, and take the hitchhiker inside. The hitchhiker screams. The gate closes. And you're left standing there, realizing you just delivered someone to their death. Here's what the game doesn't tell you. If you deliver 4 different hitchhikers or random NPCs to the altruist camp, the cultists turn on you. The next time you arrive, they ambush you in a full-scale shootout. You have to fight your way through dozens of them, and when you finally clear the camp, you can explore the compound. What you find is nightmare fuel. Human sacrifice altars, piles of human bones, cages with remains inside, blood-stained mattresses, symbols painted on rocks that match ancient pagan rituals, and strangest of all, a rusty old tractor that seems to be positioned deliberately near a pile of body parts, suggesting they use it to move corpses. The altruists aren't just random enemies. According to newspaper clippings you can find scattered throughout the game, this cult has been operating in San Andreas since at least the 1960s. They're suspected in multiple disappearances over the decades, but law enforcement has never been able to pin anything on them. They live off the grid, completely self-sufficient, and violently defensive of their territory. What's even more disturbing is their belief system. If you examine the symbols around their camp and compare them to real-world occult imagery, you'll find matches, pentagrams, sun wheels, fertility symbols. Rockstar clearly researched actual cult iconography when designing this place. And the way the altruists speak, the few phrases you can hear before they attack, suggests they believe they're purifying people, cleansing the unworthy. There's also a theory, backed by some environmental storytelling, that the altruists are connected to the Epsilon program. Both groups have a fixation on the number 9. Both operate in remote areas of Blaine County. And both have symbols that appear in similar locations around Mount Chiliad. Some players believe the altruists are what happens when Epsilon teachings are taken to their darkest extreme, a splinter group that decided meditation and donation weren't enough. That true enlightenment required sacrifice. Rockstar has never confirmed this connection, but they haven't denied it either. And that ambiguity is deliberate. They want you to theorize. They want you to feel uncomfortable. Because that discomfort makes the world feel real. One more detail that most players miss. If you return to the altruist camp after clearing it out, it remains empty. But if you visit at exactly 3 a.m. in-game time, you can sometimes hear chanting in the distance. Faint voices speaking in unison. The community has extracted the audio files, and they're real, not ambient noise. Actual recorded chanting that only plays under specific conditions. What are they saying? Nobody's been able to translate it definitively, but it sounds ritualistic. And it plays even though every NPC in the camp is dead. So, yeah, the altruist cult is one of the most genuinely disturbing elements in GTA 5. Not because of jump scares or gore, though there's plenty of that, but because Rockstar made them feel real, like something that could actually exist in the forgotten corners of rural America. Speaking of things that feel too real, let's talk about the mystery that consumed the GTA community for years. The Mount Chiliad mystery. And I mean consumed. There's an entire subreddit dedicated to this, with over 50,000 members who have collectively spent millions of hours trying to crack it. And even now, over a decade after the game's release, parts of it remain unsolved. It all starts with a simple cable car ride. If you take the gondola to the peak of Mount Chiliad, the tallest mountain in the game, and enter the observation deck at the top, you'll see something strange on the wall. A mural. It shows a rough map of the mountain with various symbols. An egg, a UFO, a jetpack figure, lines connecting them in strange patterns. The phrase, "Come back when your story is complete," scrawled at the bottom, and a series of glyphs that seem to indicate viewing conditions. When the game first launched, players assumed this was a simple Easter egg. Maybe a hint about DLC, maybe just Rockstar being weird. But then, people started finding things. If you achieve 100% completion in the game, return to the mountain peak at exactly 3 a.m. during a thunderstorm, something appears. A UFO, not a hallucination, not a glitch. An actual physical UFO hovering above the mountain peak. It's labeled in the game files as the Chiliad UFO, and it's completely solid. You can't interact with it. You can't shoot it down. It just hovers there, watching. Okay, mystery solved, right? Not even close, because once players found that UFO, they started wondering about the other symbols on the mural. The egg, the jetpack. What do they mean? And more importantly, where are they? The community went into overdrive. People started examining every inch of the map looking for clues, and they found more than they bargained for. Scattered around Mount Chiliad are 5 glyphs, stone carvings depicting various symbols, a UFO with an eye, a cracked egg, a figure with lines radiating from it. Each glyph has marks suggesting viewing conditions, rain, 3 a.m., a full moon. Following these clues, players discovered 2 more UFOs, one hovering above Fort Zancudo, the military base. This one appears without needing 100% completion, but only under specific conditions. The other is underwater near the hippie camp on the North Shore. It's a crashed, rusted UFO that's been there for decades, judging by the coral growth. So that's 3 UFOs. But what about the egg and the jetpack? This is where things get complicated. Players have torn apart the game files looking for a jetpack. There's code suggesting it was planned, unused animations, references in certain mission scripts, but no actual jetpack item that can be obtained. Some believe it was cut from the game. Others think it's still hidden, locked behind some impossibly obscure requirement. The egg is even more mysterious. Some think it refers to the crashed UFO, which is somewhat egg-shaped. Others believe it's the alien egg you can find in the ocean. Still others think it's metaphorical, representing the birth of something, a new revelation, a hidden truth. Here's where it gets really deep. The Mount Chiliad mural has been analyzed by code breakers, puzzle experts, and even actual cryptographers. The lines connecting the symbols don't seem random. They form a path. But a path to what? People have tried following the lines on the actual mountain, tried matching them to the road system, tried overlaying them on the entire map. Nothing has produced a definitive answer. Then the Doomsday Heist DLC was released for GTA Online years after the initial game, and Rockstar added new content that seemed to reference the mystery, new alien imagery, new symbols matching the Chiliad glyphs, a whole facility dedicated to studying UFOs and alien technology. Players thought, this is it. This is Rockstar giving us the answer. But even that DLC ended with more questions than answers. The current prevailing theory is that the Mount Chiliad mystery doesn't have a single solution. It's not a puzzle with one correct answer. Instead, it's Rockstar's way of keeping players engaged, exploring, theorizing. It's a mystery for the sake of mystery, which is either brilliant or incredibly frustrating, depending on your perspective. But here's what we know for certain. The 3 UFOs are real and findable. The mural is intentional. The glyphs mean something, even if we haven't fully decoded them. And Rockstar has a history of doing exactly this. In San Andreas, they convinced the entire player base that Bigfoot existed through clever myth-building, even though he wasn't actually in the game. In GTA 5, they did the reverse. They hid real secrets so well that people thought they were myths. I'll be honest, I've spent entire weekends exploring Mount Chiliad, following theories, testing hypotheses, checking locations at specific times, and I still don't have all the answers. But that's what makes it fascinating. In an age where most games get data mined and solved within hours of release, GTA 5 has a mystery that's persisted for over a decade. That's genuinely impressive. And it's not just impressive from a game design perspective. It's created a community, people collaborating across continents, sharing discoveries, debunking false leads, supporting each other through the frustration of dead ends. The Mount Chiliad mystery is bigger than just an Easter egg. It's become a shared obsession, a digital campfire where players gather to tell stories and share theories. Rockstar has a long history with Easter eggs and mysteries, and understanding that history helps explain why GTA 5 is the way it is. The company has always loved hiding secrets in their games, going all the way back to the PS2 era. In GTA 3, there were hidden packages, rampages, and unique jumps. But also weirder stuff. Strange messages on billboards, NPCs with bizarre dialogue, locations that seemed to serve no purpose but clearly had effort put into them. By the time GTA San Andreas came out, Rockstar was actively cultivating myths. The Bigfoot legend is the most famous example. Players were absolutely convinced that Bigfoot existed somewhere in the San Andreas wilderness. They spent years searching, making maps, recording strange sounds, analyzing tree textures, and Rockstar let them. They never confirmed or denied it. Developers would give cryptic answers in interviews. The community spiral grew and grew. Turns out, Bigfoot wasn't in San Andreas. But Rockstar learned something valuable. Players love mysteries. They love the hunt, even more than they love finding answers. So when they made GTA 5, they built that into the foundation. They created mysteries with real solutions, like the Infinity Killer, mysteries with partial solutions, like the Mount Chiliad UFOs, and mysteries that might not have solutions at all, just to keep people guessing. They also learned this from their other franchises. In Manhunt, their controversial stealth horror game, there were rumors of hidden rooms, secret executions, and alternate endings. Most were false, but some were real. In Red Dead Redemption, there were ghost trains, ghost towns, and supernatural encounters that blurred the line between Easter egg and actual game content. By GTA 5, Rockstar had perfected the formula. Create a world so dense with detail that players assume everything means something. Hide real secrets deep enough that finding them feels like genuine discovery. And most importantly, never confirm or deny theories. Let the community do the work. Let them argue and debate and investigate. It's honestly genius. Instead of spending millions on post-launch DLC to keep players engaged, they embedded enough mysteries in the base game to keep people playing for years. And it worked. Even now in 2025, there are active communities dedicated to solving GTA 5 mysteries. People still boot up the game just to test new theories. That's longevity you can't buy. So when you encounter something weird in GTA 5, when you see a symbol you don't recognize or hear a sound that seems out of place, remember that it's probably intentional. Rockstar put it there for you to find. Whether it leads anywhere or not is almost beside the point. The journey is the mystery. Now that we've covered the famous mysteries, the ones everyone talks about, let's dive into the map itself. Because Los Santos is hiding secrets in every corner, and some of them are genuinely disturbing. We'll start where most players begin their journey, the city center of Los Santos, where skyscrapers meet streets, where millions of dollars flow through banks and businesses, and where, hidden in plain sight, a serial killer has been operating for years. In a garage in the industrial harbor area of East Los Santos, there's what looks like a normal car repair shop. Faded paint, rusted doors, nothing remarkable. Most players drive past it hundreds of times and never give it a second thought. But if you know where to look, if you approach from the right angle, you can enter this building. And when you do, you realize you're standing in a serial killer's lair. The location is marked in the game as a random building with no name, no mission tied to it. But once you're inside, the truth becomes horrifyingly clear. The walls are covered in messages, written in what appears to be blood. Rambling, obsessive phrases about infinity, about completing the cycle, about making them perfect. In the center of the room is a table with tools, saws, knives, implements you'd expect in a torture chamber, not a garage. This is the workshop of the Infinity Killer, also known as Merle Abrahams, one of the most disturbing serial killers in GTA lore. And here's the thing, the game lets you solve this case. It's entirely optional. You can play through the whole game, complete every mission, get 100%, and never engage with this content. But if you do choose to investigate, what you find is genuinely dark. Scattered across the entire map of Los Santos and Blaine County are 8 body parts. Not whole bodies, parts. A severed arm floating in a canal, a torso in a dumpster, a leg on a park bench. Each one is labeled in the game as a letter scrap, but when you examine them, the horrible truth becomes clear. These are pieces of human beings, left as messages by a killer who wants to be found. Each body part you discover adds a letter to a collection. Once you find all 8, you can piece together the full message. It's a series of disturbing love letters written by Merle Abrahams to his victims. And I'm not going to read them verbatim here because they're genuinely unsettling. But the gist is that Merle believed he was making his victims immortal by killing them. He saw himself as an artist, and their bodies as his medium. What makes this even more disturbing is how well Rockstar researched real serial killers. Merle's psychology matches actual criminal profiles. The narcissism, the need for recognition, the delusion of grandeur, even the way he displays the body parts, scattered across the map in a pattern that means something to him but appears random to everyone else. That mirrors real serial killer behavior. Most players never find all 8 body parts because they're scattered across the entire map in the most random places. One is literally underwater near a sunken boat off the coast of Paleto Bay. You'd never find it unless you were specifically looking. Another is on top of a building most players never climb. The game doesn't hold your hand. There's no quest marker saying, hey, go find murder victim remains. You just have to stumble upon them or know where to look. Once you collect all 8 letters, something happens. You unlock the ability to track down Merle Abrahams himself. He's not hiding. He's living in plain sight, walking around Los Santos like a normal NPC. If you approach him, he runs. If you catch him, you can kill him. And when you do, he drops a unique item, a letter addressed to you, thanking you for completing his work, telling you that by killing him, you've become part of his infinity. It's chilling. And what's worse is that this entire quest line is based on a real unsolved murder case, the Black Dahlia. In 1947, a woman named Elizabeth Short was found murdered in Los Angeles, her body mutilated and displayed in a way that shocked the nation. The case was never solved. Rockstar took that real tragedy and created a fictional version of it in GTA 5. The victim in the game is named Leonora Johnson, an actress who was murdered in the 1970s. Her case went cold, until you, the player, solve it decades later. Some people criticized Rockstar for this, for using real tragedy as entertainment, and that's a fair criticism. But others argued that it's no different than the countless crime shows and movies that do the same thing. Either way, the Infinity Killer case is one of the darkest, most elaborate Easter eggs in the game, and the fact that it's entirely optional, that you can miss it completely, makes it even more impactful when you do find it. There's also cut content related to this case. Data miners found dialogue suggesting there was supposed to be more victims, more locations, possibly even a confrontation where Merle tries to make you his accomplice. That content never made it into the final game. But the files exist, hidden in the code like digital ghosts. Speaking of ghosts, Los Santos has those too, actual supernatural apparitions that appear under very specific conditions. The most famous is the ghost of Mount Gordo. And if you've never experienced this yourself, let me tell you, it's genuinely creepy the first time you see it. If you travel to Mount Gordo, a cliffy area on the eastern coast of the map, and you arrive at exactly 11 p.m. in-game time, you might see something that'll make you immediately pause the game and question what just happened. Standing near the edge of the cliff, translucent and glowing, is the ghost of a woman. She faces the ocean, motionless, and if you try to approach her, she vanishes. This isn't a mod. This isn't a glitch. This is intentional content programmed into the game by Rockstar. The ghost is Jolene Cranley Evans, and her story is tragic. According to environmental clues you can find around the map, Jolene was married to Jock Cranley, a famous stuntman turned politician. One night, they went for a walk near Mount Gordo, and somehow Jolene fell off the cliff to her death. The official story is that it was an accident. Jock was devastated. He used his grief to fuel his political career, running for governor on a platform of family values and personal tragedy. But if you explore the area around Mount Gordo during the day, you'll find something that suggests a darker truth. Written in blood on the rocks at the base of the cliff is a single name, Jock. The implication is clear. Jock Cranley murdered his wife, pushed her off the cliff, and made it look like an accident. And now her ghost appears every night at 11 p.m., standing at the spot where she died, accusing him silently for all eternity. But here's what most people miss. If you find Jock Cranley's campaign posters around Los Santos, the ones promoting his run for governor, some of them have been vandalized. Someone has spray painted the word murderer across his face in red. This isn't random graffiti. It's the game telling you that some people in Los Santos know the truth. They know what Jock did. But he's too powerful, too connected, for justice to touch him. So Jolene's ghost remains, a silent witness, an unsolved crime that everyone suspects but nobody can prove. And the fact that she only appears at 11 p.m., that she vanishes if you get too close, that adds to the eeriness. It's like she's trying to tell you something but can't. Like she's trapped between worlds, unable to rest until the truth comes out. The attention to detail here is remarkable. Rockstar didn't just plop a ghost in the game for shock value, they created an entire backstory. Environmental storytelling, clues scattered across the map, and they trusted players to piece it together. No cutscene explaining what happened, no journal entry laying it all out, just a ghost, some blood, and a series of vandalized posters. You have to do the detective work yourself. There are other ghostly encounters in GTA 5 as well, though not all of them are as well documented. Some players report seeing a phantom car on North Calafia Way, an old dirt road in Blaine County. The car appears suddenly, usually at night, drives for a short distance, then vanishes. Modders have tried to catch it, to pin down what triggers it, but it seems to be tied to some kind of random event system that's incredibly rare. Others have reported finding underwater corpses that seem to tell stories, skeletons positioned in ways that suggest final moments, a body clutching a briefcase, another handcuffed to a piece of rebar. These aren't just random assets scattered underwater for decoration. Each one implies a narrative. Someone was executed, someone drowned trying to escape, someone was already dead when they hit the water. And then there are the voices. If you dive deep into the game's audio files, you'll find something strange. There are whisper tracks, faint voices saying things like, "help me" and "find me" and other fragmented phrases. Most players never hear these because they're mixed so low in the ambient audio that they're almost imperceptible. But they're there. Rockstar recorded them, placed them in specific locations, and let them sit just below the threshold of conscious hearing, creating an uneasy feeling you can't quite place. Some people think this is Rockstar being artistic, creating atmosphere through subliminal audio. Others think there's more to it, that these voices are clues, that if you could enhance them, clean them up, they might reveal coordinates or names or other pieces of the larger mystery. The community has tried. Audio engineers have run the files through every kind of filter and enhancement tool available. But the voices remain frustratingly unclear, which, honestly, makes them even creepier. Los Santos is a city that feels alive, but it's also a city that feels haunted, not just by ghosts in the traditional sense, but by the weight of all the tragedies, crimes, and secrets embedded in its code. Everywhere you turn, there's another story, another life that ended badly. And Rockstar wants you to feel that. They want Los Santos to be beautiful and exciting and fun, yes, but also unsettling, a place where the darkness is always just beneath the surface. As we move away from the city center and venture into the outskirts, the abandoned places, we'll find that the horror intensifies. Because in the forgotten corners of Los Santos, in the places where nobody goes, Rockstar hid some of their darkest content. We're talking about locations that serve no gameplay purpose, that you could easily miss entirely, but that tell stories more disturbing than most of the actual missions. Let's start with the abandoned motel. It's located off the highway between Los Santos and Sandy Shores, a crumbling roadside motor lodge that hasn't seen guests in decades. The sign is faded, the pool is empty and cracked, and the doors to most rooms are boarded shut. Most players drive past without even slowing down. But if you stop, if you explore, you'll find something deeply unsettling. The rooms that you can enter are trashed, furniture overturned, mattresses stained, walls covered in mold and graffiti. Standard post-apocalyptic decay, right? But then you notice the bloodstains. Large pools of dried blood on the floors, splatters on the walls, smears leading from one room to another as if something was dragged. There's no explanation, no bodies, no mission that brings you here. Just blood that never goes away, even if you leave and come back hours later. The game's code marks these stains as permanent, which means Rockstar specifically wanted them to persist. They wanted players who found this place to wonder what happened here. The community has theories, of course. Some think it's connected to the altruist cult, that they use this motel as a dumping ground. Others believe it's linked to Trevor's rampage missions, though none of those actually take place here. Still others think it's just environmental storytelling, a suggestion that in a world as violent as GTA 5, places like this exist. Places where terrible things happened and nobody cared enough to clean them up. What makes it effective is the silence. Most locations in GTA 5 are bustling with life, traffic, pedestrians, ambient noise. But the abandoned motel is dead quiet. No NPCs spawn nearby. No traffic passes on the adjacent road. It's like the world has forgotten this place exists. And that isolation makes the blood feel more real, more immediate. I remember the first time I found this location. I was just driving around, exploring, and I saw the motel and thought maybe there'd be a collectible or a hidden package. Instead, I found what looks like a crime scene. And because it's GTA, because the game is full of violence and chaos, my first instinct was to laugh it off. But then I stood there for a minute, looked around, and realized that Rockstar didn't put this here as a joke. They put it here to unsettle you. Another disturbing location is the sunken airplane off the coast of the map. If you dive deep enough in the right spot, you'll find the wreckage of a commercial jet sitting on the ocean floor. The fuselage is broken in half, the wings are torn off, and scattered around the debris field are bodies. Skeletons technically, since they've been underwater for years, but skeletons positioned in ways that suggest final moments of terror. One is still strapped into a seat. Another is floating nearby, arms outstretched as if they were swimming when they ran out of air. A third is partially buried in the sand, only the ribcage visible. It's haunting. And again, there's no mission tied to this. No explanation in the game for what flight this was or why it crashed. It's just there, a tragedy frozen in time at the bottom of the ocean. Players have speculated endlessly about this. Some think it's a reference to real-world plane crashes. Others believe it's connected to in-game events, possibly a terrorist attack or mechanical failure mentioned in news broadcasts you can hear on the radio. Data miners have searched for any kind of identifier, a flight number or airline name, but the wreckage is generic, deliberately so. What's interesting is how Rockstar chose to populate the crash site. They didn't just dump some debris and call it a day. They placed bodies individually, gave them positions that tell a story. Someone tried to escape through an emergency exit. Someone clung to a seat cushion, hoping it would float. Someone never made it out of their seatbelt. It's dark, darker than it needs to be for what's essentially just an underwater Easter egg. And because it's so deep underwater, in an area most players never explore, finding it feels like uncovering a secret, like you've discovered something you weren't supposed to see. That sense of transgression, of stumbling upon hidden tragedy, is what makes these locations effective. Then there's the lighthouse, specifically the one near the Sonar Collections dock. During the day, it looks picturesque, a classic coastal landmark. But if you climb to the top and explore the interior, you'll find messages scratched into the walls. Phrases like, "I can't do this anymore," and "forgive me," and "it's too late." These are suicide notes, or the fragments of them. The implication is that someone, possibly the lighthouse keeper, took their own life here. And unlike the motel or the plane crash, this one hits different because it's personal. It's not mass tragedy or criminal violence, it's individual despair. A single person reaching the end of their rope in isolation. Rockstar could have left it at that. A few sad messages and let players draw their own conclusions. But they went further. If you visit the lighthouse at certain times, you can hear creaking sounds, footsteps, a door slamming. Some players report feeling like they're being watched, though that could just be the power of suggestion. The game's code doesn't show any NPC spawns here. But the audio cues are real. What's left unsaid is often more powerful than what's explicit. Rockstar understands this. They didn't show a body. They didn't create a cutscene of someone jumping. They just left the notes, added some ambient audio, and let your imagination fill in the rest. And that's genuinely effective horror design, because whatever you imagine is probably worse than anything they could show you. These abandoned locations scattered throughout GTA 5 serve a purpose beyond just being Easter eggs. They make the world feel lived in, real. In real life, there are abandoned motels with dark histories. There are plane crashes with unsolved questions. There are lighthouses where tragedies occurred. Rockstar included these elements to give Los Santos depth. to suggest that this world existed before you arrived and will continue after you leave. But they also serve another purpose. They reward exploration. In an age where most open-world games mark everything on your map, where quest logs tell you exactly where to go and what to do, GTA 5 still has places that exist purely for players who wander off the beaten path. You have to earn these discoveries, and that makes them memorable. I've played GTA 5 for hundreds of hours, and I'm still finding locations I've never seen before. Alleyways with strange graffiti, buildings with hidden interiors, underwater caves with no apparent purpose. Each one adds to the sense that Los Santos is deeper than it appears, that no matter how much you explore, there's always more. Now, speaking of things hidden in plain sight, let's talk about something that most players encounter but don't fully understand. The serial killer clues scattered throughout the city. Not just the Infinity Killer's body parts, but other evidence. Newspaper clippings about unsolved murders, missing person posters that stay up for the entire game, graffiti that references specific dates and names. On the surface, these seem like random background details. Flavor text to make the world feel more realistic. But when you start connecting them, when you cross-reference names and dates and locations, a pattern emerges. And it's dark. There are at least 3 separate serial killer cases implied in GTA 5 beyond the Infinity Killer. One involves missing hikers in the Chiliad mountain range, all last seen near the Altruist camp. Another involves women who disappeared from Vespucci Beach over a period of years, their bodies never found. A third involves gang members from different factions who were murdered in ways that don't match typical gang violence, suggesting someone is targeting criminals specifically. None of these cases have solutions in the game. There are no missions where you track down these killers. No closure. They exist purely as world building. But they're documented. If you collect all the newspaper clippings, screenshot all the missing posters, and compile them, you can piece together timelines, patterns. And the implication is that Los Santos, like any major city, has multiple active serial killers operating at any given time. That's genuinely dark. Most games would make these mysteries solvable, would give you a quest to hunt down the killer and bring them to justice. But GTA 5 just lets them exist, unsolved, ongoing, because that's more realistic. Real cities have cold cases. Real police departments have files on murders they'll never solve. Rockstar included that reality in their game. What makes this even more effective is how subtle it is. The game never draws attention to these details. There's no pop-up saying, "Hey, check out this missing poster." You just happen to notice it while walking by. And if you're the type of player who pays attention, who reads the text and remembers names, you start seeing connections. But if you're not, if you're just focused on missions and mayhem, you'll never even know it's there. This layered approach to storytelling is what separates GTA 5 from other open-world games. Most games have main quests and side quests, and everything is clearly marked and tracked. GTA 5 has those too, but it also has this third layer, unmarked content, environmental narratives, mysteries that don't have solutions. And that layer is what keeps people playing years after release, because there's always the possibility that you missed something, that there's a clue you didn't notice, a connection you didn't make. The game actively encourages this mindset. It rewards paranoia. And for players who love mysteries, who love digging into lore and theorizing about connections, GTA 5 is endlessly replayable. The city is disturbing enough. But once you head into the wilderness, into Blaine County, things get even stranger. Because while Los Santos has urban horror, the kind that comes from density and anonymity and crime, Blaine County has something different. Isolation horror. The kind that comes from being alone in vast, empty spaces where nobody can hear you scream. Let's venture into the wilderness, where the weird stuff happens, where UFOs appear and cults thrive and the boundaries between reality and myth start to blur. Because if Los Santos is creepy, Blaine County is where GTA 5 fully embraces the supernatural. GTA 5 has actual aliens, not theories, not mods, actual confirmed UFOs that you can see in the game under specific conditions. We touched on this earlier with the Mount Chiliad mystery, but let's go deeper. Because there are 3 distinct UFOs in the game, each with different requirements and implications, and together they suggest something much larger is happening. The first UFO, the one above Mount Chiliad, is the most famous. To see it, you need to achieve 100% completion in the game, every mission, every stranger and freak event. every collectible. Once you hit that milestone, you need to go to the peak of Mount Chiliad at exactly 3 a.m. during a thunderstorm. If you do all that, the UFO appears. It's massive, hovering silently above the observation deck, and it's labeled in the game files as FIB UFO, suggesting it's related to the Federal Investigation Bureau, the in-game version of the FBI. Here's the thing. You can't interact with it. You can't shoot it. You can't get close enough to board it. It just hovers there, and if you move too far away or if the storm ends, it disappears. But the fact that it requires 100% completion suggests it's a reward. Rockstar's way of saying, congratulations, you've seen everything the game has to offer. Here's something special. The second UFO is above Fort Zancudo, the military base. This one doesn't require 100% completion, which makes it easier to find, but also more mysterious. If you fly above the base at a certain altitude during specific weather conditions, you'll see it. Unlike the Chiliad UFO, this one seems to be military in origin. It has a different design, more angular, more mechanical. Some players think it's a reverse-engineered craft built by the government using alien technology. Others think it's fully alien but being studied by the military. What's interesting is that if you fly too close to this UFO, you get a wanted level. The military doesn't want you near it. They'll shoot you down without hesitation. This has led to theories that the government in GTA 5 is aware of alien presence and actively covering it up, which, given the game's satirical take on American government, makes perfect sense. The third UFO is the most intriguing because it's not in the sky. It's underwater near the hippie camp on the northern shore of the map. You have to dive deep to find it, and when you do, you discover a fully intact UFO resting on the ocean floor. It's old, covered in coral and sediment, clearly been there for decades, if not centuries. This one raises questions. If it's been there that long, does that mean aliens have been visiting Earth in the GTA universe for a long time? Is this a crashed scout ship, a derelict left behind after first contact? And if it's been sitting there undiscovered, what does that say about humanity's awareness of alien life in this world? Data miners have examined all three UFOs extensively. The Chiliad one has functioning lights and a rotation script, suggesting it was meant to do more than just hover. The Zancudo one has different textures and materials, backing up the theory that it's military-made. The underwater one has unique aging effects, rust, and barnacles, proving it's intentionally designed to look ancient. But here's where it gets really interesting. Inside the game files, modders found something that wasn't accessible in normal gameplay. A door prompt for the underwater UFO. Code that suggests at one point in development you were supposed to be able to enter it. The prompt exists, the trigger exists, but it's disabled in the final game. Why? Did Rockstar cut that content for time? Or is it still there, waiting to be unlocked through some obscure series of actions nobody's discovered yet? This is the kind of thing that drives the community crazy, because it's entirely possible that there's a way to enter that UFO. Some combination of conditions or items or mission states that activates the door, but nobody's found it yet. The UFO phenomenon in GTA 5 ties into the larger alien mythology Rockstar has built. Throughout the game, you can find alien-themed collectibles, frozen aliens in prologues, alien graffiti in subway tunnels, NPCs wearing alien costumes, and strangest of all, a series of glowing green plants scattered across the map called peyote. If you consume one of these peyote plants, your character hallucinates. You transform into an animal, a bird, a dog, a mountain lion. You can fly, run, attack, experiencing the game from an entirely new perspective. There are 27 peyote plants hidden throughout the map, each turning you into a different creature. But the final peyote, the 27th one, is different. It only appears after you've consumed all the others, and it only spawns at a specific time on a specific day. If you manage to find it and eat it, you transform into Bigfoot. Not a hallucination of Bigfoot, actual Bigfoot. And a mission triggers where you, as Bigfoot, have to battle another Sasquatch in the frozen mountains. It sounds absurd, and it is. But it's also Rockstar's way of addressing their own history with myths. In GTA San Andreas, they let the community believe Bigfoot existed for years, even though he didn't. In GTA 5, they made him real. But they hid him so well behind such obscure requirements that finding him feels like discovering genuine magic. The Bigfoot mission, called The Last One, is actually kind of emotional. You play as a Sasquatch being hunted by someone you think is a human hunter. You chase them through the woods, and when you finally confront them, you realize they're another Sasquatch, the last of their kind, like you. And instead of fighting, you become friends. The mission ends with the two Sasquatches roaring together, companions in a world where they're the only ones left. It's weirdly wholesome for a game as cynical as GTA 5, and the community loved it. When this was finally discovered, after 2 years of searching, players were genuinely moved. Rockstar trolled us with Bigfoot in San Andreas, but in GTA 5, they gave us closure. They made the myth real and tied it into the larger alien supernatural theme of the game. The fact that aliens, UFOs, and Bigfoot all exist in GTA 5 raises questions about the nature of that universe. Is it meant to be realistic satire, or is there genuinely something supernatural happening? Rockstar has never answered this definitively, and that ambiguity is intentional. They want the world to feel grounded enough that the satire works, but strange enough that anything seems possible. This balance between realism and absurdity is what makes GTA 5's horror elements so effective, because you're never quite sure what's real within the logic of the game and what's meant to be meta-commentary. Is the ghost at Mount Gordo a literal spirit? Or is it the game's way of visualizing guilt and unresolved trauma? Are the UFOs actual alien craft, or are they government experiments? The game never tells you. It lets you decide. Moving deeper into Blaine County, away from the UFO sightings and into the truly desolate areas, we encounter something that's unquestionably real and unquestionably terrifying: the altruist cult. We discussed them briefly earlier, but now let's really explore what makes them one of the most disturbing elements in the entire game. The altruist camp is located high in the Chiliad mountain wilderness, accessible only by a winding dirt road that most players would never take unless they had a reason. The camp itself is a compound. Wooden buildings, makeshift walls, and a central area that looks like it's used for gatherings or rituals. During the day, it seems almost peaceful, rustic, like a survivalist commune. But examine it closer, and you start seeing details that paint a very different picture. Human bones arranged in patterns around fire pits, cages with bloodstains, symbols carved into rocks that match ancient pagan fertility rites and sun worship. And if you arrive at the right time, you can see the altruists themselves. Gaunt, wild-eyed men wearing animal pelts and face paint, moving around the camp with an unsettling purposefulness. As Trevor, you can deliver hitchhikers and random NPCs to this camp for money. The altruists thank you, pay you, and take the person inside. And if you're not paying attention, if you're just grinding for cash, you might not think much of it. But the screams you hear as you drive away should be a clue. The desperate pleas for help that get cut off suddenly. These people aren't being welcomed. They're being taken. After delivering 4 victims, the altruists turn on you. The next time you approach the camp, they ambush you in a full-scale shootout. Dozens of them, pouring out of buildings, armed with shotguns and assault rifles, determined to kill you. It's one of the most intense firefights in the game, and when you finally clear them all out, you can explore the camp freely. What you find is horrifying. Altars stained with blood, piles of human remains, evidence of cannibalism, ritual sacrifice. The camp isn't just a hideout for criminals. It's a fully functioning death cult that's been operating for decades. According to in-game lore you can piece together from newspapers and environmental clues, the altruists have been in San Andreas since at least the 1960s. They're suspected in multiple missing person cases, but authorities have never been able to gather enough evidence to raid the camp. They're too remote, too well-armed, and possibly too connected to powerful people who prefer they stay hidden. The altruists' belief system is a twisted mix of different ideologies. They worship the sun, evident from the sun wheels and solar symbols everywhere. They practice human sacrifice, suggesting they believe in blood offerings to ensure prosperity or enlightenment. And they have a fixation on the number 9, which connects them possibly to the Epsilon program. Some players theorize that the altruists are what happens when Epsilon teachings are taken to their darkest extreme. Both groups worship cryptic deities. Both operate in remote areas of Blaine County. Both use similar numerology. What if the altruists are Epsilon cultists who decided that meditation and donation weren't enough? That true enlightenment required violence and sacrifice? Rockstar has never confirmed this connection, but the evidence is there if you look for it. And the fact that players have to do their own research, compile their own theories, makes the discovery feel earned. You're not being told a story, you're uncovering one. One detail that disturbs me personally is the tractor. In the altruist camp, there's an old, rusted tractor positioned near a large pile of dismembered body parts. The implication is that they use it to move corpses, to transport victims from the cages to the ritual sites. It's a farming tool repurposed for murder. And that mundane horror, the idea of everyday objects being used for atrocities, is somehow worse than any supernatural element could be. What makes the altruists effective as antagonists is that they're human. They're not zombies or demons or aliens. They're people who have chosen violence and cruelty as a way of life. And in the world of GTA, where violence is everywhere, where the player character themselves is probably a mass murderer by this point in the game, the altruists stand out. Because their violence isn't for money or revenge or even fun. It's ideological, it's ritualistic, and that makes it feel more real. If you return to the altruist camp after clearing it out, it remains empty. The bodies despawn, but the structures stay. And if you visit at exactly 3 a.m., you can sometimes hear chanting in the distance, faint voices speaking in unison, even though every NPC in the camp is dead. The community has extracted these audio files, and they're real. Not ambient noise, actual recorded chanting that only plays under specific conditions. What are they saying? Nobody's been able to definitively translate it. The words don't match any real language. Some think it's backwards Latin, others think it's complete gibberish designed to sound ritualistic. But it plays, and it plays when the camp should be silent. Which raises the question, are we hearing a recording of past rituals? Or is something still there, lingering even after death? Rockstar loves this kind of ambiguity. They'll include something creepy, something that could be explained either rationally or supernaturally, and let the players debate. And that debate keeps the game alive in the cultural consciousness. The wilderness of Blaine County is full of places like this. Locations that seem innocuous at first, but reveal darkness upon closer inspection. Another example is Dignity Village, the homeless encampment under the Olympic Freeway in Strawberry. It's a collection of tents and makeshift shelters inhabited by NPCs who have nowhere else to go. Most players drive past it without stopping. But if you explore on foot, you can interact with the residents. They have dialogue, backstories. One used to be a professor before losing everything in the recession. Another is a veteran who couldn't adjust to civilian life. Each one is a small tragedy, a person who fell through the cracks of society. What's disturbing about Dignity Village isn't violence or horror in the traditional sense. It's the uncomfortable reality it represents. In a game about excess, wealth, crime, and power, Dignity Village is a reminder that not everyone gets to participate in that. Some people are left behind. And Rockstar included this location, gave it detail and depth as a form of commentary. You can find similar encampments throughout Blaine County, under bridges, in abandoned lots, along riverbanks. Each one tells the same story. People forgotten by society, surviving however they can. And while this isn't creepy in the same way as a serial killer or a ghost, it's unsettling in its own right. Because it's real. This isn't fantasy. This is something that exists in actual Los Angeles, the city that inspired Los Santos. Then there's Stab City, the lost motorcycle club's hideout in the desert. It's exactly what it sounds like, a ramshackle collection of trailers and buildings where a biker gang operates. During certain missions, you have to infiltrate it, and what you find is a community built entirely on violence and drug trade. The level of decay here is striking. Rusted vehicles, piles of trash, buildings held together by duct tape and willpower. But it's the people that make it disturbing. NPCs who will attack you on sight, who have dialogue suggesting they've done things most criminals would find excessive. This is where Trevor fits in, among people as broken and violent as he is. What's interesting is that Stab City has hidden interiors, buildings you can glitch into that are fully modeled but normally inaccessible. Inside, you find things that suggest even darker activities. Torture rooms, drug labs, armories. Rockstar built all of this, even though most players will never see it, because it makes the world feel real. It suggests that behind every door is another story. The wilderness also has random encounters that can be genuinely disturbing. You might be driving through the desert and come across a car pulled over on the side of the road. If you stop to investigate, you find a woman in the trunk, bound and gagged, clearly having been kidnapped. You can free her or drive away. The game doesn't force you to be a hero, or you might encounter a couple being robbed at gunpoint. Intervene and you save them. Ignore it and they die. These events spawn randomly, and they're designed to make the world feel unpredictable, dangerous, like anything can happen at any time. But some random encounters are weirder. You might pick up a hitchhiker who seems normal at first, then pulls a gun and tries to rob you. Or a hitchhiker who thanks you for the ride, then reveals they're wanted for multiple murders and asks if you'd like to join them. The game gives you moral choices without framing them as such. It just presents situations and lets you react. What makes these effective is that they're not announced. There's no prompt saying random encounter incoming. They just happen. You're driving, minding your own business, and suddenly you're in the middle of something. That unpredictability mirrors real life, and in a game, it keeps you engaged. The wilderness of Blaine County is also home to several abandoned mine shafts scattered throughout the mountains. Most are just environmental decoration, but a few are explorable. If you venture inside, you find old mining equipment, collapsed tunnels, and in some cases, bodies. Skeletons of miners who died in cave-ins or accidents decades ago. One mine in particular has something strange. Graffiti that doesn't match the time period. Modern tags mixed with old warnings. Some players think this is just an oversight, a texture artist using the wrong asset. But others believe it's intentional, that someone has been using these mines recently. For what purpose? The game never says. There are also ghost towns in Blaine County, small settlements that were once thriving but are now abandoned. Buildings with furniture still inside, as if people left in a hurry. Cars rusting in driveways. Playgrounds with swings moving in the wind. These locations are eerie because they suggest sudden departure. Something happened that made everyone leave. But what? The game doesn't explain. And that's probably for the best, because the mystery is more effective than any answer could be. Your imagination fills in the gaps. Maybe it was an industrial accident, maybe an epidemic, maybe something supernatural. Rockstar gives you just enough detail to spark curiosity, then leaves you to wonder. Cemeteries in GTA 5 are also worth exploring if you're looking for creepy details. There are 3 major ones in the game. The one in Pacific Bluffs has graves dating back to the 1800s. The one near the Vinewood sign has more recent plots. And the one in Paleto Bay is small but contains some interesting names. If you examine the gravestones closely, you'll find Easter eggs. Some have the names of Rockstar developers, others reference characters from previous GTA games. And a few have epitaphs that are genuinely sad, brief glimpses into fictional lives that ended too soon. But the creepiest thing about the cemeteries is the audio. If you stand still in one for long enough, especially at night, you can hear whispers, faint voices that seem to come from nowhere. The community has debated whether these are intentional or just artifacts of the game's ambient audio system. But either way, they're unsettling. And then there's the ocean. The deep, dark ocean that surrounds the map. Most players never explore it because there's not much reason to. But if you do dive deep, if you venture into the darkest parts where light doesn't reach, you find things that will make you immediately surface. Bodies. Lots of bodies. Skeletons positioned in ways that tell stories. One is handcuffed to a piece of rebar, suggesting an execution. Another is clutching a briefcase, still trying to hold on to whatever was inside even in death. A third is tangled in fishing net, drowned accidentally while trying to make a living. These aren't just random assets. Each one is placed deliberately, and together they paint a picture of the ocean as a dumping ground, a place where secrets go to disappear, which, given that Los Santos is based on Los Angeles, is probably a reference to real organized crime history. There are also crashed vehicles underwater, cars, boats, even a submarine in one location. Each wreck has a story implied by its position and condition. Some look like accidents, others look deliberate, and a few look like they were attacked, with damage patterns suggesting gunfire or explosions. The ocean in GTA 5 is terrifying not because of monsters, though sharks are present, but because of what it represents. It's the unknown, the deep, the place where things are hidden and forgotten. And Rockstar populated it with just enough disturbing content to make diving feel dangerous even when it's not. Now let's head back to land and into the interiors, the buildings of Los Santos. Because while the world map is full of secrets, some of the darkest content in GTA 5 is hidden behind closed doors. In places you can only access through glitches or specific missions. And what Rockstar put in these spaces reveals just how much effort they put into creating a world that feels complete, even in areas players aren't supposed to see. First, let's address one of the most controversial missions in GTA history, the torture sequence in the mission By the Book. This isn't just creepy or disturbing, it's genuinely hard to watch. You play as Trevor, forced to torture a suspect by pulling out teeth, electrocuting him, and waterboarding him, all while Michael uses the information to target someone. The mission sparked massive controversy when the game launched. Critics argued it was gratuitous, that it crossed a line even for GTA. Defenders said it was satire, that Rockstar was making a point about the ineffectiveness and immorality of torture as an interrogation tactic. The mission ends with Trevor, of all people, giving a speech about how torture doesn't work and only serves to satisfy the torturer's sadism. Whether you think the mission succeeded in its satire or failed spectacularly depends on your perspective. But what's undeniable is that Rockstar made players uncomfortable on purpose. They could have shown the torture in a cutscene. Instead, they made it interactive. They forced you to choose which method to use. And that interactivity makes it hit harder. There's actually cut content related to this mission. Data miners found alternative approaches and dialogue suggesting the original version was even darker. There were more torture methods, more graphic descriptions. Rockstar toned it down before release, which tells you how extreme the initial concept must have been, moving on to places most players never see. The FIB building, the in-game equivalent of FBI headquarters, has a fully modeled interior that's mostly inaccessible during normal gameplay. You visit parts of it during certain missions, but there are entire floors and rooms you can't reach, unless you glitch inside. If you do manage to clip through walls or use mods to explore, you find offices, conference rooms, holding cells, and evidence rooms, all fully textured and detailed. Why? Because Rockstar planned missions that would use these spaces and either cut them or decided to block them off for technical reasons. What's creepy is what you find in some of these rooms. Interrogation chambers with bloodstains, cells with scratch marks on the walls, evidence boards with photos of characters from the main story, suggesting the FIB has been watching you the entire time. It's voyeurism reversed. You're spying on the people who spy on you. Fort Zancudo, the military base, also has inaccessible interiors. Control towers, hangars, underground sections. Some of these you can glitch into, and when you do, you find military equipment, computers, and in one case, a room with alien artifacts. This backs up the theory that the government in GTA 5 is studying extraterrestrial technology. Hospitals are another example. GTA 5 has fully modeled hospital interiors, even though you never actually go inside them during gameplay. When you die, you respawn outside. But the interiors exist. Operating rooms, morgues, waiting areas, all built and detailed. Why would Rockstar do this? Probably because they planned missions or mechanics that would use these spaces. Maybe at one point you were supposed to wake up in a hospital after dying, walk through it, and exit. That would make the respawn feel more immersive. But it was cut, likely for pacing reasons. Still, the fact that they built it all shows their commitment to world building. The Life Invader office is particularly interesting. During one mission, you rig a prototype device to explode, killing the company's CEO during a live presentation. After that mission, if you return to the Life Invader building, it's still there. But it's changed. Scorch marks, broken glass, evidence of the explosion. But there are also areas of the building you couldn't access during the mission that are fully detailed. Break rooms with developer in-jokes written on whiteboards, server rooms with cables and equipment, hidden bathrooms with graffiti referencing real-world tech companies. These spaces serve no gameplay purpose. They're just there, waiting for curious players to find them, and that's what makes GTA 5 special. Rockstar didn't just build a game, they built a world. And they populated it with details most people will never see, simply because it makes the world feel more complete. But some interiors are genuinely disturbing in ways that go beyond just being detailed. There are hidden rooms scattered throughout Los Santos that contain things players clearly weren't meant to see. Or maybe they were, and Rockstar was testing how long it would take us to find them. One example is a basement in a building downtown. You can only access it through a specific glitch involving a bike in a wall. Inside, there's a room with strange symbols on the floor, a pentagram specifically. candles arranged around it, and bloodstains. Is this a satanic ritual site? An Epsilon secret chamber? Nobody knows. The game provides no context, and because it's hidden behind a glitch, we can't even be sure it's intentional. Maybe it's a testing area developers use that accidentally made it into the final build. Or maybe Rockstar left it there deliberately, knowing that players would eventually find a way in. There's also Trevor's hidden safe houses. Most players only use the main ones marked on the map, but there are additional safe houses that aren't marked, small trailers and shacks in remote locations that Trevor can use. Inside some of these, you find disturbing items, restraints, weapons that aren't available anywhere else in the game, photos of people you don't recognize. These details suggest Trevor has a history even darker than what's shown in the main story, that the chaos and violence you see him commit during missions is just the tip of the iceberg. And Rockstar, rather than spelling it out, lets you discover it through exploration. Another creepy interior is the Infinity Killer's hideout, which we discussed earlier. But there are additional details worth mentioning. The messages on the walls aren't random. They're coded. The community has tried to decrypt them using various methods, and while no one solution has been accepted as canon, patterns have emerged. Certain words repeat. Certain numbers appear more frequently. Some believe the messages contain coordinates to additional body dump sites that haven't been found yet. Others think they're red herrings, meaningless rambling designed to look significant. But the fact that players are still trying to decode them a decade later shows how effective this kind of environmental storytelling can be. Rockstar understands that mystery is more engaging than answers, that players will invest more time trying to solve a puzzle than they will simply being told a story. And GTA 5 is built on that principle. Every creepy interior, every hidden room, every unexplained detail is an invitation to dig deeper, to theorize, to explore. The final category of creepy interiors is the most unsettling. Places where NPC behaviors break down, where the game's AI does things it probably shouldn't, creating moments that feel genuinely wrong. For example, there are reports of NPCs spawning inside walls, their bodies clipping through textures, creating grotesque visual glitches, or NPCs getting stuck in animation loops, performing the same action over and over like someone trapped in time. In one building downtown, players have reported an NPC that just stares at a wall for hours, not moving, not reacting to the player, just staring. It's probably a pathfinding error. The AI got stuck and doesn't know how to resolve it. But in context, it's creepy, because it looks intentional, like the NPC is trapped, aware but unable to act. There are also reports of NPCs following players across the map, not as part of a mission or event, just following. Staying a certain distance behind, mirroring your movements. This could be a glitch in the witness system, where an NPC who saw you commit a crime is trying to track you but can't complete the script. Or it could be something else. I've personally experienced this. I was playing as Michael, just driving around, and I noticed a car behind me. Same car, same NPC for over 15 minutes. I changed directions multiple times, took random turns, and the car stayed behind me. When I finally stopped and got out, the NPC stopped too. Just sat there, watching. I shot at the car, and the NPC drove away normally. So it wasn't invincible or scripted to be unkillable. It was just following. And I still don't know why. Maybe it was a bug. Maybe it was a random event that never triggered properly. Or maybe it was intentional, and I missed some cue that would have started a mission or encounter. That uncertainty is what makes these AI behaviors so effective as unintentional horror. Because you can't be sure what's a glitch and what's a feature. And in a game as detailed and complex as GTA 5, the line between the two is thinner than you'd think. These disturbing NPC behaviors, combined with the hidden interiors and environmental details, create a sense that Los Santos is not entirely under control. That beneath the code and systems is something unpredictable, something that can surprise even Rockstar. And maybe that's the ultimate creepy fact about GTA 5, that despite being a carefully constructed digital world, it can still produce moments that feel genuinely unexpected, genuinely wrong, like the game itself is haunted. We've explored the visible darkness of GTA 5, the secrets you can find if you know where to look. But now let's dive into something even more fascinating, the content that was too dark even for Rockstar. The missions, characters, and storylines that were planned, built, recorded, and then cut from the final game. because sometimes what's left out is more revealing than what's included. Data miners have been picking apart GTA 5's code since the day it launched, and what they've found is remarkable. Entire missions that were nearly complete but removed at the last minute. Voice acting that was recorded but never used. Character models that exist in the files but never appear in the game. And when you examine this cut content, a pattern emerges. Rockstar had plans that were significantly darker than what we got. Let's start with one of the most substantial discoveries. Evidence of a planned zombie outbreak mode that was supposed to be part of the main game, not DLC. The files are extensive. Animation sets for zombie NPCs, melee weapons specifically designed for undead combat, modified vehicle handling for apocalypse scenarios, even altered weather patterns that would create a permanent overcast, oppressive atmosphere. The zombie mode appears to have been intended as either an alternate timeline or a post-game scenario, something that would fundamentally change Los Santos after you completed the main story. Imagine finishing the game, seeing one of the endings, and then having the option to play in a version of the map where civilization has collapsed and the undead have taken over. Why was it cut? The leading theory is that Rockstar decided to separate it from the main game to avoid tonal whiplash. GTA 5 is satire. It's dark comedy. A zombie outbreak, even a satirical one, would shift the genre entirely. It would turn the game into survival horror. And maybe they felt that was too jarring a transition. There's also the undead nightmare precedent to consider. Rockstar had already done a zombie DLC for Red Dead Redemption, and it was hugely successful. Perhaps they initially planned to do the same for GTA 5, building it into the main game, then decided to save it for standalone DLC. Except that DLC never materialized. The assets remain in the code, unused, a ghost of what could have been. The community has actually recreated portions of this zombie mode using mods, activating the dormant files and systems. And it works. The zombies spawn, they attack. The weapons function as intended, which proves this wasn't just concept work. This was far along in development before being abandoned. Another cut mission that's been extensively documented involves a much darker fate for one of the main characters. Without spoiling which character or which ending, let's just say that files exist, suggesting there were originally 5 possible endings to GTA 5, not 3. 2 of these alternate endings were significantly more brutal and final than what made it into the game. One involved a betrayal that happens earlier in the story, leading to a prolonged torture sequence where the player has to watch, unable to intervene as alliances crumble in the worst possible way. The voice acting for this scene exists in the files. The animations are partially there, and the emotional weight of the dialogue suggests it was meant to be one of the most impactful moments in the game. Why cut it? Probably because it was too bleak. GTA games are dark, yes, but they usually leave some room for hope, or at least dark humor. This ending apparently offered neither. It was just tragedy, pure, unrelenting tragedy. And perhaps Rockstar felt that crossed the line from mature storytelling into nihilism. The other cut ending involved a conspiracy that goes much deeper than the FIB or IAA plotlines we got. Files reference a shadow organization controlling both agencies, and in this ending, the protagonists uncover the truth but realize they're powerless to stop it. The final scene apparently showed them going their separate ways, broken by the knowledge that the system is too corrupt to fight. Again, you can understand why this was cut. It's unsatisfying from a gameplay perspective. Players want agency. They want their actions to matter. An ending that says, you can't win, the system is too big, might be realistic, but it's not fun. And GTA, for all its darkness, is still supposed to be fun. There's also evidence of cut missions involving much more graphic violence than what's in the final game. Remember the controversy around the torture scene? Apparently that was toned down from the original script. Data miners found dialogue describing additional torture methods, more detailed descriptions of injury, reactions from the victim that were considerably more visceral. Rockstar made a deliberate choice to pull back from that edge. They wanted the scene to be uncomfortable, to make a point about torture, but they didn't want it to be unwatchable. The line between effective commentary and gratuitous cruelty is thin, and the cut content suggests they may have initially crossed it before revising. Another fascinating discovery involves Packy McReary, a character who returns from GTA 4. In the final game, he's involved in some heist missions if you recruit him. But cut dialogue reveals there was supposed to be a much more extensive storyline involving his family, his past, and his attempts to go straight. This arc apparently ended with Packy having to choose between loyalty to the protagonists and protecting his remaining family members. The mission structure exists in the files. The dialogue is recorded, but it was cut, likely for pacing reasons. GTA 5's story is already dense with 3 protagonists. Adding a major subplot for a supporting character might have bloated the runtime too much. Still, for fans of GTA 4 who loved Packy's character, knowing this content exists but remains inaccessible is bittersweet. Then there's the North Yankton content. In the final game, we only visit North Yankton during the prologue and one other brief mission. But the map for North Yankton is actually much larger than what we see. There are entire sections of the town that exist in the files but are blocked off during normal gameplay. Modders who've explored these areas found houses with full interiors, shops with products on shelves, a bank that's different from the one we rob in the prologue. Evidence suggests there were supposed to be additional missions set in North Yankton, possibly flashback sequences that would flesh out the backstory of Michael and Trevor's partnership. One particularly interesting discovery is a church in North Yankton that has a fully detailed interior, including a basement with what appears to be a morgue. Why would a small-town church need a morgue? And why would Rockstar model it in such detail if we never see it? These questions fuel theories about cut content involving death, funerals, perhaps even supernatural elements. Speaking of supernatural, there's evidence of cut paranormal investigation missions. Files reference a character who was supposed to hire Franklin to investigate haunted locations around Los Santos. The missions apparently involved using special equipment to detect ghostly activity, similar to the Epsilon missions, but with a horror twist. Some of the locations mentioned in these files match up with the creepy spots we've already discussed. The Mount Gordo ghost, the lighthouse, the abandoned motel. It's possible these locations were originally supposed to be part of this questline, and when the missions were cut, Rockstar left the locations in as environmental storytelling. There are also unused character models in the files that are genuinely unsettling. One is labeled simply as Burned Victim, and appears to be an NPC who suffered severe fire damage. The level of detail is disturbing. This wasn't meant to be seen from a distance. This was a model designed for close-up interaction. Was this for a mission involving a house fire, a car explosion, or something more sinister, like evidence of the altruist's activities? We don't know. The model exists, fully textured and rigged for animation, but it's never used in the game. Another unused character is simply called Basement Prisoner in the files. It's a male NPC with restraint marks on his wrists and ankles, bruising on his face, and clothing that suggests he's been held captive for a long time. Again, we have no context. No mission files that reference this character. Just a model that exists in the game's data, waiting for a purpose that never came. These unused assets paint a picture of a game that was originally even darker, even more disturbing than what was released. And it raises questions about Rockstar's creative process. How do they decide where the line is? What's too far? And do they regret cutting some of this content, or do they feel it was the right choice? In interviews, developers have occasionally addressed this. They've said that they build more than they need, knowing they'll cut things. It's part of the process. You explore dark ideas, you prototype them, and then in playtesting and review, you decide what serves the story and what's just darkness for its own sake. The torture scene made it in because it served a narrative purpose, however controversial. The zombie mode got cut because it didn't fit the tone. The darker endings were removed because they left players feeling powerless. Every cut was a calculated decision about what kind of experience they wanted to deliver. But for those of us who love digging into game files, who enjoy understanding what could have been, this cut content is treasure. It shows us the road not taken. The version of GTA 5 that exists in an alternate timeline where different creative choices were made. Moving from cut missions to unused map locations, there are several areas that exist in the game but are inaccessible or underutilized in ways that suggest they were meant for more. The most famous example is the aircraft carrier. Deep in GTA 5's files is a fully modeled aircraft carrier. It's massive, detailed, with interiors including hangars, control rooms, crew quarters, and a full flight deck. But it doesn't appear anywhere in the normal game. Modders have extracted it and placed it in the ocean, and it works perfectly. You can walk on it, drive vehicles on it, even fly planes off the deck. So why isn't it in the game? The prevailing theory is that it was meant for a heist mission that got cut. Imagine a mission where you have to infiltrate or assault a military carrier. The gameplay possibilities are enormous, but for whatever reason, the mission didn't make the final cut, and the carrier remained in the files as a ghost of ambitious plans. There's also an entire underground subway system that was built but is largely blocked off. In the final game, you can access parts of the subway, but there are tunnels and stations that exist in the map data but have no entrances. Modders who've clipped into these areas found fully detailed environments. Platforms with benches and vending machines, tunnels with graffiti and homeless encampments. This suggests there were supposed to be missions or gameplay mechanics involving the subway system. Maybe chase sequences through the tunnels, maybe hideouts, or fast travel points. Whatever the plan was, it got abandoned, but the infrastructure remains. Another interesting location is a series of underground bunkers scattered around Blaine County. Most are locked or inaccessible, but a few can be glitched into. Inside, you find military equipment, supply caches, and in one case, a command center with computers and maps on the walls. These bunkers were eventually used in GTA Online's Doomsday Heist DLC, but their existence in the single-player files suggests they were originally planned for the main story. Perhaps missions involving the military or conspiracy plot lines that went deeper than what we got. The level of detail in these unused locations is what's most striking. Rockstar didn't half-build them, they completed them. Which means at some point in development, these were active parts of the game world. Missions were probably built around them. And then, for reasons of pacing or budget or creative direction, they were cut. It's a reminder that game development is as much about subtraction as addition. You build more than you need, then you carve away until you're left with the strongest, most cohesive experience. And what gets carved away often tells you just as much about the creator's intentions as what remains. Now let's talk about unused characters and storylines. Because beyond the cut missions and locations, there are entire character arcs that were planned but never fully realized. One of the most significant is an extended storyline for Lamar Davis, Franklin's best friend. In the final game, Lamar is a supporting character. He's important to Franklin's story, but he doesn't have his own arc. However, voice files suggest there was supposed to be a series of missions where you play as Lamar, experiencing his perspective on the events of the game. These missions apparently showed Lamar getting in over his head with gang politics, and Franklin having to bail him out. The files include dialogue for missions that don't exist in the game. Conversations between Lamar and NPCs we never meet. Heated arguments with Franklin where both characters say things that never made it into the final script. It's clear this was a substantial cut, probably removed to keep the focus tight on the three main protagonists. Another character who was supposed to have more content is Floyd's girlfriend, Deborah. In the final game, she's barely present. But cutscenes suggest she was originally supposed to have a larger role, possibly even becoming an antagonist. There are voice files of her threatening Trevor, making demands, and in one particularly dark line implying violence if her demands aren't met. Given what eventually happens to Floyd and Deborah in the game, it's possible their fate was originally presented differently. Maybe the player had a choice in how that situation resolved. Maybe there were multiple outcomes. The existence of unused dialogue suggests the current version is a simplified version of something more complex. There's also evidence of a character who was entirely cut from the game. In the files, there are references to someone named Agent ULP Wife, with a handful of voice lines. Agent ULP appears in the game as a corrupt government operative, but his wife is never mentioned or seen. However, these lines suggest she was supposed to appear in at least one scene, possibly confronting the protagonists or providing information. Why cut her? Hard to say. Maybe the scene didn't work. Maybe it made ULP too sympathetic when Rockstar wanted him to remain morally ambiguous. Whatever the reason, she exists only as a handful of audio files, a character who never made it to the screen. One of the most intriguing unused storylines involves what appears to be an alternative version of the relationship between Michael and his therapist, Dr. Friedlander. In the final game, the therapy sessions are optional and mostly comedic. But unused dialogue suggests there was supposed to be a darker arc where the therapy sessions become increasingly tense, culminating in a confrontation. In these unused lines, Michael accuses Friedlander of exploiting him, using his confessions for a book the doctor is writing. Friedlander, in turn, tells Michael things about himself that Michael doesn't want to hear. The final exchange apparently ended with Michael threatening violence, and Friedlander calmly telling him that proves everything he's been saying. This would have added real weight to those therapy sessions, transforming them from comic relief into genuine character development. The fact that it was cut suggests Rockstar decided to keep the tone lighter, not wanting to make Michael too dark or the therapy scenes too heavy. Then there are the unused alternate dialogue trees. GTA 5 has a system where characters sometimes have multiple lines they can say in response to the same situation, creating variety across playthroughs. But in the files are dialogue options that suggest some missions originally had branching paths with different outcomes. One example involves a mission where you're supposed to spare someone's life. The unused dialogue includes lines for "if you kill them anyway," suggesting the mission originally allowed that choice and would continue differently based on your decision. In the final game, most missions are linear. You do what the script demands. These files hint at a version where player choice mattered more. Another cut element is a more extensive wanted system. Files reference a witness intimidation mechanic where you could threaten NPCs who saw you commit crimes, preventing them from calling the police. There are animations for this, dialogue lines, even a UI element, but it's not in the final game. Why cut it? Possibly because it slowed down gameplay. GTA's pace is frenetic. Stopping to intimidate witnesses every time you commit a crime would interrupt that flow. But it would have added an interesting strategic layer, letting you manage your wanted level through fear rather than just escaping the search radius. There's also evidence of a reputation system that was more complex than what shipped. Files suggest NPCs were supposed to react to you differently based on your actions. If you frequently helped strangers, some NPCs would recognize you and be friendly. If you were violent, they'd be afraid. This dynamic reputation was apparently tied to each character individually. Trevor's reputation would differ from Michael's, which would differ from Franklin's. Implementing this would have been technically challenging, requiring the game to track hundreds of variables across the open world. It's understandable why it was simplified, but imagine how much more immersive Los Santos would feel if the world truly remembered your actions and responded accordingly. Moving to unused audio, some of the creepiest cut content comes in the form of voice lines that were recorded but never implemented. There are unused screams, pleas for help, and disturbing monologues that don't match any mission or character in the final game. One set of files contains what sounds like someone being interrogated. Not the torture scene we discussed earlier, but something different. A voice asking questions about a conspiracy, about who can be trusted, about locations of hidden items. The responses are garbled, either intentionally distorted or corrupted in the files, but the tone is pure desperation. Was this for a cut mission? An alternate version of an existing scene? Or is it test audio that accidentally made it into the final build? Nobody knows, and Rockstar, as always, isn't talking. There are also unused radio segments. GTA's radio stations are one of its most celebrated features, but in the files are commercials and talk show segments that never air in-game. Some are just different versions of things that did make it in, but others are entirely unique. One cut commercial advertises a product called Eternal Youth Serum in a way that's clearly satirizing anti-aging scams. But the ad takes a dark turn, with side effects that include hallucinations, violent outbursts, and in one line, complete personality dissolution. It's Rockstar's trademark dark humor, but perhaps it was deemed too dark even for their standards. Another unused radio segment features a call-in show where someone describes seeing a UFO. The host mocks them, the audience laughs, and the caller becomes increasingly agitated, eventually threatening to prove it by flying a plane into the UFO himself. The segment ends with dead air, implying he actually did it. This is disturbing on multiple levels. It references suicide by plane crash. It plays on conspiracy theorist stereotypes. And given the game's actual UFO content, it blurs the line between satire and in-game reality in an uncomfortable way. You can see why it was cut. There's also an unused weather system that would have created more extreme conditions. Files reference tornadoes, dust storms, and something called red rain that appears to be acid rain or blood rain, though the files don't specify. These weather events were apparently random, like thunderstorms in the final game, but far more dangerous. Imagine driving through Blaine County and suddenly encountering a tornado, or being caught in acid rain that slowly damages your health. It would add unpredictability and danger to the open world, but it might also frustrate players who just want to get from point A to point B. All of this cut content, missions, characters, systems, paints a picture of a game that was incredibly ambitious. Perhaps too ambitious. Rockstar built a version of GTA 5 that was darker, more complex, and more mechanically dense than what was released. And then they made hard choices about what to keep and what to lose. Some of those choices were clearly right. Cutting the overly dark endings, for example, probably made for a better overall experience. But other cuts feel like lost opportunities. The expanded Lamar storyline, the more dynamic reputation system, these would have added depth without necessarily making the game less fun. The beauty of cut content is that it exists in a state of potential. It's what the game could have been, and for fans, that's endlessly fascinating. We can imagine the alternate version. We can debate whether the cuts were justified. We can even mod the game to restore some of this content and experience it ourselves. But we can never know for certain if those cut elements would have made the game better or worse. We only have the version Rockstar chose to release. And that version, even with all its cuts and compromises, is still one of the most detailed, disturbing, and compelling game worlds ever created. Now, as we approach the end of our journey through GTA Thieves' Darkness, let's shift gears slightly. We've covered confirmed content and cut content, but there are still mysteries nobody has fully solved, theories that persist despite years of investigation, and legends that might be myths or might be hidden truths we haven't uncovered yet. The Mount Chiliad mystery remains the most famous unsolved puzzle. We've discussed it before, but let's dig deeper into where the investigation stands now. Because even after all these years, the community is still actively searching for answers. The current state of the mystery is complex. We know the 3 UFOs exist and how to trigger them. We know the glyphs are intentional and provide viewing conditions. We know the mural at the peak is a map of some kind. But the egg and the jetpack, the 2 remaining symbols, have never been definitively explained. The jetpack is particularly frustrating because there's so much evidence it was planned. Animation files exist for jetpack use. There are references in mission scripts. The Doomsday heist in GTA Online even added a usable jetpack, proving Rockstar had the model and mechanics ready. But in single player, it remains inaccessible. Some believe the jetpack is still hidden, locked behind some impossibly obscure series of conditions. You'd need to complete certain missions in a specific order, be in a specific location at a specific time, with specific weather, while doing a specific action. The idea is that Rockstar made it so difficult to find that a decade later, nobody stumbled upon the correct combination. Others think the jetpack was cut from single player, and the mural was never updated to reflect that. It's an Easter egg pointing to something that no longer exists, a relic of earlier development. The egg is even more mysterious. Some theories suggest it represents the alien egg you can find underwater. Others think it's metaphorical, representing the hatching of truth or enlightenment, classic Epsilon program imagery. Still others believe it's a literal egg somewhere in the game that we haven't found yet. One popular theory connects the egg to the cracked egg glyph on Mount Chiliad. The glyph shows an egg with a crack, implying something emerging. This has led to speculation about transformation, metamorphosis, perhaps tied to the peyote plants that let you become animals. The most elaborate theory I've seen suggests the entire mystery is about transcending the game itself, that the jetpack is metaphorical for rising above the constraints of the game world, that the egg represents birth into a new understanding, that solving the mystery isn't about finding an item, but about achieving a philosophical state. It's pretentious, sure, but it's also very Rockstar. They love meta-commentary. They love making players question what the game is and what it means. A mystery that turns out to be about the nature of mysteries themselves would be peak Rockstar trolling. The community continues to investigate. There's a Discord server where dedicated hunters share findings daily. People data mine every update looking for new clues. Theories are proposed, tested, and either confirmed or debunked. It's a living, ongoing investigation that shows no signs of stopping. And maybe that's the point. Maybe Rockstar created a mystery with no solution specifically to keep people engaged forever, to create a community that never stops searching. Because as long as we're looking, we're playing. And as long as we're playing, GTA Thieves remains relevant. Beyond Chiliad, there are other unsolved mysteries worth mentioning. The sunken UFO, for example, has never been fully explained. You can find it, you can see it, but you can't interact with it. There's no door prompt despite files suggesting there should be one. No additional lore explaining its presence. It just sits there on the ocean floor, ancient and silent. Some players have spent hundreds of hours trying different approaches, bringing specific vehicles near it, being in the area at specific times, having certain items in inventory. Nothing has worked. And yet, the conviction remains that there's more to discover. The Epsilon program, too, has unsolved elements. Even after completing all the missions, collecting all the tracks, finding all the hidden symbols, there are aspects that don't fully make sense. Numbers that appear to be codes, phrases that seem to reference something beyond what's explained, a persistent feeling that we're missing a layer. One theory suggests the Epsilon content is actually a cipher, and if decoded properly, would reveal coordinates or instructions for another mystery entirely. People have tried treating the tract as a book cipher, using the first letters of words, looking for patterns in capitalization. Nothing definitive has emerged, but the search continues. Then there are the ghost sightings that remain unverified. Beyond Jolene at Mount Gordo, there are scattered reports of other supernatural encounters. A ghost car that appears on certain roads at night, phantom sounds in specific buildings, shadows that move independently of any NPC. Most of these are probably false. Pareidolia, where we see patterns that aren't there, or legitimate glitches that create creepy visuals by accident. But some reports are consistent enough across multiple players that they're worth investigating. The ghost car, for example, has been reported by dozens of players over the years. Descriptions match. It's always the same model, always appears on North Calafia Way, always at night. It drives slowly, sometimes stopping, then vanishes when approached. Modders have tried to capture it, but it's never shown up during deliberate attempts to trigger it. Is it real? Is it a rare random event? Or is it mass delusion? Players wanting to believe in something spooky so badly that they interpret normal NPC behavior as supernatural? We don't know, and that uncertainty is what makes it compelling. There's also the question of whether Rockstar has added content post-launch that wasn't in the original release. Not through official updates, but hidden in patches. Small changes to the map or code that go unannounced, waiting to be discovered. This practice, called stealth updates, is something Rockstar has done before in other games, adding Easter eggs silently, then watching to see how long it takes the community to find them. With GTA 5, some players swear certain things weren't there at launch, but appeared later. A graffiti tag that seems new, an NPC that wasn't there before, a sound in a location that was previously silent. Proving this is nearly impossible. You'd need to have the original Day 1 code and compare it line by line to current versions, accounting for all official patch notes. Some dedicated modders have attempted this, and they've found anomalies, small changes that weren't documented. But whether these are secret additions or just bug fixes is unclear. It speaks to the paranoia GTA 5 inspires. When a game is this detailed, this full of secrets, you start to question everything. Is that texture new? Did that dialogue always exist? Am I seeing patterns that aren't there? Or am I noticing something real? The line blurs, and that's exactly what Rockstar wants. As we wind down this exploration of GTA 5's creepy underbelly, let's take a moment to discuss why these mysteries and disturbing elements resonate so strongly with players. What is it about digital darkness that draws us in? Why do we spend hours hunting for serial killers and ghosts in a game ostensibly about stealing cars? Part of it is the safety. We can explore horror and darkness from the comfort of our homes. No real danger, no real consequences. We get the thrill of fear without the actual risk. It's cathartic, in a way. We can confront disturbing topics, process them, and then turn off the console when it gets to be too much. But it's also about curiosity. Human beings are inherently curious about taboo subjects. Death, violence, the supernatural. These are things we're told not to think about too much in daily life. But art, including games, gives us permission to explore them, to ask questions we wouldn't ask in polite company. GTA 5, specifically, uses its satirical framework to examine dark aspects of American culture. Serial killers are real, cults are real, government conspiracies, corruption, exploitation, all real. By presenting these topics in the exaggerated video game form, Rockstar creates space to think about them critically. When we investigate the Infinity Killer, we're not just solving a puzzle. We're engaging with questions about violence, fame, and the American obsession with serial killers. When we encounter the altruists, we're confronting uncomfortable truths about isolation, extremism, and what happens when people fall through society's cracks. The game doesn't preach. It doesn't tell you how to feel about these topics. It just presents them, often in disturbing ways, and lets you draw your own conclusions. That respect for player intelligence is part of why GTA 5's dark content works so well. There's also something to be said about community. the shared experience of discovering something creepy, posting about it, theorizing with others. These mysteries create connections between players. You're not alone in the darkness. You're part of a community of explorers, all shining lights into different corners, sharing what you find. The Mount Chiliad mystery community is a perfect example. Thousands of people collaborating across years to solve a puzzle, supporting each other through frustration, celebrating small victories. It's not just about the answer, it's about the journey and the people you meet along the way. And finally, there's the allure of the unknown. In an age where information is instant and comprehensive, where wikis document every detail of every game within days of release, GTA 5 stands out. It has secrets that persist, questions without answers, and that makes it special. We're so used to having complete information that mystery itself has become rare. GTA 5 offers genuine mystery, not manufactured difficulty or artificially gated content, but actual secrets that require thought, experimentation, and collaboration to uncover. That's increasingly precious in modern gaming. So, when we explore the creepy side of GTA 5, we're doing more than just looking for Easter eggs. We're engaging with art that respects our intelligence. We're joining a community of like-minded explorers. We're confronting darkness from a position of safety. And we're experiencing one of the last truly mysterious game worlds in an era of spoilers and data mining. As we reach the final moments of this deep dive into Los Santos' darkness, let's rapid fire through some additional creepy facts that didn't fit neatly into our earlier categories. Small details, strange occurrences, and odd design choices that contribute to the overall unsettling atmosphere of GTA 5. Did you know there's a serial killer who specifically targets prostitutes, and you can find the crime scenes scattered around Los Santos? The bodies are posed in specific ways, and if you examine them closely, they all have the same injury patterns. It's never explained or tied to a mission. It's just there, suggesting an ongoing investigation that never resolves. In the basement of a certain building, you can find mannequins arranged in domestic scenes, a dinner table, a living room, all positioned as if they're a family. There's no reason for this. No mission uses it. It's just creepy set dressing that implies someone is down there, playing house with mannequins. If you listen closely to the ambient dialogue of NPCs, occasionally you'll hear someone talking about seeing things, shadows that follow them, voices in their head, dreams about drowning. These lines are rare and easily missed, but they add to the sense that Los Santos is a city teetering on the edge of collective madness. There's a specific alleyway downtown where, at midnight, you can sometimes hear a woman screaming. There's no NPC visible, no event triggers, just the sound of someone in distress, echoing off the buildings, then stopping abruptly. Players have tried to trace the source, but it seems to be ambient audio with no physical origin point. In Trevor's trailer, if you look in his bathroom, there are prescription bottles with disturbing medication names. Things that don't exist in real life but sound like they treat serious psychiatric conditions. It's a small detail that reinforces Trevor's mental state without dialogue or cutscenes. The Vinewood sign has a jumper. If you go there late at night, sometimes you'll see an NPC standing at the edge, looking down. If you approach, they jump. You can't stop them. It happens too fast. And afterwards, there's no body, no investigation. The NPC just respawns elsewhere as if it never happened. It's nihilistic and dark, a reminder that in Los Santos, individual tragedies are meaningless. Under one of the bridges, there's graffiti that reads, "They're watching," with an eye symbol. Similar graffiti appears in several locations around the map. Always the same message, always the same eye. Is it related to the Epsilon program, the UFOs, or is it just paranoid ramblings from an NPC artist? The game never clarifies. In the depths of the ocean, there are groupings of rocks that, from above, form symbols. Most are natural patterns that our brains interpret as meaningful, but a few are too precise to be accidental. They match symbols found elsewhere in the game, glyphs, epsilon markers, as if someone arranged these rocks deliberately, underwater, in the dark, for purposes unknown. There's a house in Paleto Bay where all the windows are boarded from the inside. You can't enter, you can't see in, but if you stand near it at certain times, you can hear movement, footsteps, something heavy being dragged. There's no related mission, no explanation, just a house that's clearly occupied but utterly inaccessible. The prison, which you visit during certain missions, has a solitary confinement wing that you can glitch into. The cells are tiny, dark, and some have scratch marks on the walls forming words. Most are illegible, but one clearly reads, "Let me out," repeated dozens of times, the letters getting shakier and less coherent as they go. At the altruist camp, if you return after clearing it and wait until exactly 3:33 a.m., the campfire in the center reignites on its own. No NPCs spawn. Nothing attacks you. The fire just lights, burns for a few minutes, then goes out again. Players have theorized this is the cultists' spirits continuing their rituals, unable to accept death. In one of the hospital's inaccessible areas, modders found an operating room with a body on the table. But the body has no texture. It's a blank human shape, featureless and disturbing. Was this a placeholder that was never finished? Or is it intentionally creepy, meant to be discovered by curious players who break the boundaries? There are payphones scattered around Los Santos, and very rarely they'll ring as you walk past. If you answer, you hear breathing. Sometimes whispers, sometimes just static. There's no pattern to which phones ring or when. It seems completely random, which makes it more unsettling. You never know when it'll happen. The funhouse on the pier has mirrors that occasionally show reflections that don't match your character. A different person standing behind you, or your character making a gesture you didn't input. It's so brief and so rare that many players think it's a myth, but enough people have reported it that it's worth investigating. In the subway tunnels, there are sections with no lights, completely dark, and if you stand in that darkness long enough, you start to hear heartbeat sounds. Slow at first, then faster. It's probably meant to represent your character's anxiety in the dark, but it feels like something else. Like the tunnel itself is alive. Finally, there's the mystery of the missing children. Throughout Los Santos, you'll see missing posters with children's faces. Different kids, different dates, all unsolved. There's no quest related to this, no resolution. Just a steady stream of missing children that nobody in the game world seems particularly concerned about. It's a dark reflection of real-world tragedies, made more disturbing by its casual presence in the background. These small details, taken individually, might not seem like much, but collectively, they create an atmosphere. They make Los Santos feel haunted, not just by ghosts, but by the weight of countless small tragedies. Every corner has a story, every building has secrets, and most of them are dark. This is Rockstar's genius. They don't just build a map, they build a world, and they populate it with so much detail, so many layers of narrative, that you could play for years and still find new things, still uncover new horrors. We've traveled through Los Santos and Blaine County, from the heights of Mount Chiliad to the depths of the ocean, from serial killers to supernatural encounters, from cut content to unsolved mysteries. We've examined the darkness that Rockstar embedded in every corner of this digital world. GTA 5 is more than a game about crime and chaos. It's a meditation on American excess, corruption, and decay. It's a satirical mirror held up to our darkest impulses. And it's a playground for explorers, theorists, and people who love to dig beneath the surface. The creepy elements aren't just Easter eggs. They're integral to what makes Los Santos feel real. Real cities have unsolved murders. Real cities have cults and conspiracies, and places where terrible things happened. By including these elements, Rockstar created a world that feels lived in and authentic, even as it's exaggerated and satirical. Whether you're discovering these secrets for the first time or you're a veteran investigator who's known about them for years, they retain their power. Because they tap into something primal, our fascination with darkness, our need to understand the incomprehensible, our desire to confront fear from a position of safety. GTA 5 will continue to be played, explored, and analyzed for years to come. New players will discover old mysteries. Old players will find new details they missed before. And the community will keep searching, keep theorizing, keep pushing the boundaries of what this game can reveal. So whether you're falling asleep to this video or taking notes for your own investigation, I hope you've enjoyed this journey into the creepy side of GTA 5. Los Santos is a city of angels, yes. But it's also a city of demons, and both are worth exploring. The darkness of Los Santos is deep, but it's not infinite. We've reached the end of our tour, but your exploration doesn't have to end here. Boot up the game. Visit these locations yourself. See what you can find that nobody else has noticed. Because in GTA 5, there's always more hiding just beneath the surface. Sweet dreams. And when you dream, dream of Los Santos, Dream of its secrets, its mysteries, its carefully crafted darkness. Dream of UFOs over mountains and ghosts on cliffs. Dream of conspiracies and cults and stories left unfinished. And when you wake, maybe you'll see our own world a little differently. Because GTA 5, for all its exaggeration, is holding up a mirror. And sometimes the creepiest thing is recognizing our reality in its reflection. Until next time, stay curious, stay skeptical, and never stop exploring. The mysteries are out there. You just have to know where to look.